Good morning. This special meeting of the Judson Board of Trustees is hereby called to order at 9:01 a.m. Thank you for taking time to join us on this wonderful Saturday morning. In compliance with the State Government Code on Open Meetings, this morning's agenda has been appropriately posted, and we will establish a quorum. I'll go ahead and just do a roll call right now. Ms. Faulkner? Here. Ms. Stanford? Here. Ms. Rodriguez?
Here.
Ms. Ryan?
Here.
And Jose Macias is also present. That's me. But we do have Ms. Deborah Eaton and Ms. Suzanne Knoyer that are absent at the moment. So we have a pretty good agenda. I do pledge to get us out by 12 o'clock, no later than, if not a little earlier. So we'll spend the first portion of the meeting on the program review, but I do want to spend about an hour on the board operating procedures as we talk about drafting it. So, Dr. Fields?
Yes, sir. Today we put together a few areas for program review that we thought would be of interest to the board. Our first up is curriculum and instruction. So, Dr. Toppin, Dr. Saunders.
We are allowing our directors this morning to talk to you about their program, and I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer Johnson, our Director of Elementary, and Priscilla Alfaro, our Director of Secondary.
Good morning, board members and Dr. Fields. You have received a copy of our program review in the board book, and we stand here ready to answer any questions that you may have regarding our department.
Okay.
There it is.
Yeah,
Want to be
yeah.
able to answer those
So
questions.
let's just take a look at this. Are there any immediate questions? Ms. Stanford?
Yes, very curious as to what all goes into the purchasing. What is that 190,000? It doesn't seem very big, so that can't possibly cover curriculum for everything.
Are we talking the 290,000? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
No,
Okay.
at the bottom.
Or,
At the bottom, the 190.
Our instructional materials are purchased out of IMA, which is our instructional materials allotment. And also, if it's anything that has a technology base, we share that cost with technology also. So what you're looking at is the budget that we use for all of our professional development sessions and our teacher trainings with our academic trainers, and also our department meetings with our department chairs. And so when you're looking at our budget, the things that we are providing to teachers in the classroom comes from various pots of money. So you're not going to see the huge cost in our budget. You would see it in the technology budget because that's where our instructional materials allotment is put.
This is more, like you said, professional.
In the department.
So this number covers professional development.
We also tap into Title II for professional development.
Okay.
So when you're looking at our budget, what's there is what we use to purchase items that are specific to C&I
Okay.
and not necessarily what we're providing at the campus level for instructional materials.
Okay.
Because the state has that set aside in a different pot of money that is our instructional materials allotment. So when we're talking about purchasing items like textbooks and teacher editions and all of that, that comes out of our instructional materials allotment, as well as some of the other categorical funds that we use from other departments.
Okay. So would we add these numbers together?
No, because that's a separate department.
So all these numbers on here, all go into different departments?
Yes.
Okay.
Because when you're looking at curriculum instruction, you're looking at K through 12. And so we share the pot of money is shared among K through 12. Coordinators, directors, so on.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Before I give it to Ms. Ryan, let me ask.
Until the end.
Well, I have a question. Right now is the first thing that comes to my mind, and thank you for being here on this morning. The curriculum committee, we have a curriculum committee that meets regularly, right? I guess by your assessment, that committee's going well and doing some innovative things, or what does that look like?
Well, I can say that we are receiving regular feedback, and that, I think, is very helpful in allowing us to take a look at the curriculum, not only from looking at a data source that's just coming from assessments, but also from teachers and others giving feedback about the structure and what they would like to see and the overall look of particular documents. So I believe that that is a positive for us because we are able to continue to make modifications to address those comments.
The reason I ask is obviously just get some input on it, but regularly at the board meeting, we've always asked, how are we engaging teachers in the classroom in this process? And the inclusiveness of their input would be helpful, and pathways to, even if they're not on the committee, input is being garnered for additional input is something I would hope that we continue to create.
Yes, and so I can tell you that that's kind of the lens that we've had, like teacher feedback is extremely important, and so what we've also understood is that teachers want to collaborate not only within their campuses, but across other campuses for like contents. And so especially this year, we've provided those opportunities in the forms of what we call like unit launches. So we'll bring teachers together to be able to experience the unit, have any feedback, have any questions before they actually teach it. And in addition to that, we've created curriculum reviews that we've opened up across the district that we've kind of established phases for, and we've invited all teachers to come in within those contents and be able to provide feedback at that time. And so I can tell you, just looking at data, at the beginning of the year, we established what we call flex PDs after school that just focused on various types of things or strategies or whatever the case is. And doing the curriculum reviews and the unit launches, we have seen a tremendous increase in teacher participation. So we know that that's something that they want. We know that that's something that they feel like allows them to feel valued and have input. And so that's something that we're going to continue.
So the variance in the curriculum numbers from 213,000 from your budget to 190, what is that variance attributed to?
We have decreased budget across the district. A lot of it too also has to do with where our focus is. Sometimes in years when we're launching new incentives and new programs, our budget will be aligned accordingly. And so this year, our focus was really on our academic trainers, which are at every single campus. And our academic trainers, we needed instructional coaching because we had a large change and the teachers that were in that group, and then some campuses, they left or got promoted into assistant principal positions or left and decided not to teach anymore. So campuses saw a turnover in their academic trainer numbers. So what this year we did, we partnered with our federal grants and programs department and really focused this year on training our academic trainers who work with teachers in instructional coaching. So how to coach a teacher that is struggling, how to get the teacher from point A to point B. And so you won't see that number in our number because we tapped into Title II funds for that.
Okay.
And we spent a lot of money on just focusing on that this year because we wanted to make sure that what was done at the campus was going to be there to support teachers. Because I believe that that has been a focus of this board, that we wanted to make sure that our teachers were supported at every level, no matter if they were a novice teacher or if they were a veteran teacher.
And I guess my last question before I yield it to Ms. Ryan. In regards to the professional development, we spend a lot of resources in that. One of the things I've mentioned in the past is how are we ensuring that this pathway, professional development, is actually yielding the results that we want. So is there measurability in terms of this has been, even if it's just a survey to teachers, did you like this method of professional development? Did you find it was redundant? Have you been here before? Those type of things, is there some sort of...
Before you guys jump in and answer that, and I know you got a full answer for it, Dr. Saunders, but I myself have seen where they've offered PD outside the instructional day, even before school day starts. where they'll ask teachers to come in who are interested in certain information, like they were saying on the unit implementation. And you walk in this room and there's almost 150 people who have elected to come in early before the day starts just to get that. So if participation is any indication of whether or not it's successful, because it's not mandatory, this is all voluntary, and the amount of people that are in the room looking for assistance and receiving that assistance has been tremendous that I've witnessed. So if you guys want to add to that.
So when you talk about like return on investment, right? Like, are we seeing these practices in the classroom? I think there's a couple of different levels there. First and foremost is the initial feedback we get from teachers on the quality of the professional development. Then the next level is we developed very specific walkthrough forms this year that targeted everything from instructional practices and classroom management all the way to different types and levels of questions, as well as implementation of the curriculum. So what we were able to do with these in-home, in-house created walkthroughs is we were able to start pinpointing, this is the professional development we gave in October. Do we see the turnaround through October, November, December, and forward with these walkthrough forms? Then the added layer to that is the same professional development that teachers are getting, principals and academic leaders get it as well. So it kind of brings that full circle, right? Like, we can go in and do those checks with those walkthroughs, but then do principals see it? Do academic leaders see it when they go in as well? Another piece I think we've gotten really good at is getting that feedback from academic leaders about what type of professional development they feel they need next. That's been pretty powerful. An example of that is we did the instructional coaching this year. We also coupled that with crucial conversations professional development for principals, because those two are married together, right? Like, you've got to be able to create a space where you can have those types of conversations. And so I feel like that's kind of really moving the ball forward in that return on investment for professional development. When you can have leaders in our district, classroom leaders and academic leaders, get to the point where they feel comfortable delivering professional development, or contacting campuses and going over and watching what they're doing and then really kind of embedding that at their home campus, I feel like you're getting to that kind of next level.
The point, I guess, to try to bring this all together is everything that we do is focused on retention in my mind, right? And one of the things that we've heard from in past times is teachers may feel they're not getting the right support, or that we'll see surveys where first-year teachers, second-year teachers, they need more classroom management development because they're trying to manage a classroom and they're fresh out of getting their certification. So those type of professional developments, to look at the bottom line. So I eventually want to be the best in terms of turnover, where we have all the teachers staying for the most part, but all of this kind of blends together in terms of giving them that support. And so I just wanted to get a sense of what that lens looked like. So I'm satisfied at this point, but thank you.
I will say that Harry Wong is still good. And so what we did this year is that every first-year teacher, DOI teacher, was taken through training using Harry Wong's 100 Days of School, but he's also come out with a brand-new book called Classroom Management. And we spent a lot of time in that, and it gave very specific guidelines of what that looks like in the classroom. So part of our new teacher cohort trainings that were being conducted by our directors and the coordinators was really focused on, okay, this is what he says in the book, this is what it actually looks like in your classroom, and modeling that and having them practice with people, having them practice with their peers, so when they left that training, they could go right into their classroom the next day and implement it. Been very successful, and we will continue that model.
I appreciate that. In the past, we've seen turnover, and part of that could be attributed that employees would go to larger districts where we couldn't compete. But right now, the board has strategically placed our compensation for teachers higher than many of the other districts. So this should be the place they would stay, especially if we're giving that development so that they're not learning everything and then just going to a bigger district. The goal is to keep them here. But at this point, I'll yield. Ms. Ryan?
I mean, obviously, we could talk about curriculum all day, this is big. So, try and think of this kind of from a strategic, standpoint is, our curriculum varies a lot, right? We range everywhere from a Eureka, which is HQIM, full scope and sequence, pacing guides, like everything. Like it's math curriculum in a box, don't touch it, don't do anything with it type thing, to other publishers that may have also full scope and sequence, but maybe they're not a listed HQIM, to, I don't know if hodgepodge is the right word, that's probably not the right word, but where we write the scope and sequence and planning, and we use STEM scopes with it. Like we have pieced it together over years, and we're continuing to change it. And then when we look across campuses, some curriculums will have everybody doing the same thing, and then we have some differentiation, right? Like we may have somebody doing a different RLA or somebody doing a different high school math. So what lessons have we learned from last year and this year in terms of performance using certain curriculums, and what are we looking to enhance kind of next year based on what we've learned? So like, for example, if one high school is having great success with Delta Math, have we looked at exporting that to the other two high schools? If we have one elementary school using Amplify in a box and they're having amazing achievement with that, have we looked at exporting that out to all of our campuses? So what sort of curriculum enhancements are we looking to make based off what we've learned over the last year or two of using whatever we have used?
I want to start, and then I'll let y'all jump in, because I know y'all can. I want us to be very careful when we're talking about curriculum and resources.
Yep.
Okay? The curriculum are the state standards that has been given for every content area, every grade level, and whatnot. This is what the state says we have to teach. We have to purchase resources that is going to allow us to meet those state standards. What we do in the district, because what the state will not do, they're not going to give you the day-to-day layout of what that's supposed to look like. They are working towards that. Eureka Math and some of the other HQIMs are some of the products that they have put out to help with that. And so when you look at what we're talking about, what we are providing, we take the standards, which is the curriculum, and use our resources to build a scope and sequence, to build a pacing calendar, and to build a guide for our teachers to use, that when you're in unit 1, that's the first unit of the year, you use that unit, and you're going to start here, and you're going to focus on these T's. We provide that guidance in those curriculum guides that every teacher uses. Every teacher in our district uses those unit guides. We have specialized campuses that are innovation campuses that have purchased resources that are aligned to what their innovation is about. And you can help me, Ceci, if you need to. Innovation is about. They have to turn in a plan to TEA that outlines what they're going to use, and that is a requirement. So when you're talking about our innovative campuses, they're under a different guidance because they have received funding, specialized funding from the state that allows them to go in a different path. So Carnegie Learning is one of those HQIMs that the state has aligned with those innovative campuses. That is not something that they have provided for us to use for all campuses. We would have to purchase that separately. We have looked into that. We love it. We steal from it. I shouldn't say steal, but we borrow from that. But the case of the matter is the only reason why we're able to do these at these innovative campuses is because of the additional funding that has been provided for the grants that those campuses are operating out of.
Yeah, and some things we talk about in the innovation committee are, the reason, one of the many reasons we do the innovation campuses is to get that money to try new things, right? Like all of a sudden we get to go launch and use this money to go buy a very expensive curriculum and then see how does it work? Because at some point, when you're looking at, progress and everything else, is there a potential high return on investment of a big dollar amount item, right? Like if we buy Carnegie or we buy Amplify at the elementary level, like if we invest in that, is the potential ROI on that, even though it's a high price tag thing, is that something that's going to propel our students farther than anything else that we can currently use? I guess that's kind of the analysis, because I don't want I don't think we want district staff just saying no because it's expensive, right? Like not bringing it to us. I think we want to see, the data, like show us what it's doing and say, it's got a big price tag. Are you all willing to pay this price tag if we think we can get you this? And those are hard decisions, obviously,
And that's
in
part
budget.
of the audit that we're having, because we want
That was-
someone to come in and audit the curriculum that we have provided to our teachers, and we get the feedback from that audit. We're also waiting on STAR results for this year with the implementation of Carnegie Learning and Eureka Math, and really look at what we have seen at the campuses that we've been tracking all year long that have been using those curriculums resources. And so there's a lot of different pieces. We were complimented when we went through the CMAT training with the person from TASA and from TEA about the fact that our curriculum, that the scope and sequence, the curriculum and whatnot that we're providing to our teachers right now that we have facing out on our intranet to our teachers, we were complimented on the depth and scope, and that's been years of us working and reworking that. This audit is really going to let us know where we're at, and that's why we're excited and pursuing that, because we really want to see what the final say is going to be when they've gone through all of our curriculum documents.
Okay, so kind of a pause. So no, let's call what I would call major, right? So no major, other than the innovation campuses, obviously the 4 new ones are going to get new curriculum as part of their grant. But otherwise, nothing major that we're changing for next year in terms of like everybody's going over to X or everybody's switching to Y. We're not
Correct.
looking at anything major for
Correct.
next school year yet, right now.
I think the most important thing is that, just like the board, when you guys ask for the audit on positions and pay, we've got a curriculum audit coming up, and then they'll come back with recommendations that say, hey, you
Okay.
need to focus on this and focus on that.
Okay.
In terms of the implementations at our LASSO campuses or the other grant, T-class, one was for blended learning. We've tried that model, but that's not something that we're confident that we should come back to the board and say we need to implement this across the district. It needs to be exclusive to particular campuses that students can go to. And we're waiting, that's what I'm trying to get to with the next one. With the LASSO grant, it was just implemented this year. So it's too early to say that something is extremely effective to where we would bring it to the board and say we need to invest in this across the district or not. Once we see maybe the results after an entire year, we can feel more comfortable saying we think we can reduplicate this in other places, and it might be good for this campus or that campus, or maybe even across the district. But right now, it's just a little bit too early to give that.
I have a related question. So, and it's related to yours, and then I'll let you go back. Okay. My understanding is the math adoption will be coming up pretty soon. Like, that would be what, 25, 26, or? Yes. Okay. So like, not this next school year, but the following school year would? Okay. And my understanding, well, I have a strong hunch that part of the reason Carnegie is in these like innovation things is to like proof of concept, right? And then it might be on the adoption list. And so then in 2 years, we could get that curriculum essentially with the instructional materials allotment instead of paying out of pocket, so to speak.
That's right.
Okay. And that might be worth waiting for because it's millions of dollars probably that we would spend if we wanted to, but yeah, okay.
Is that math?
Math. Each year, there's a different curriculum that's like it's science on this year, yeah.
Okay. Would it replace Eureka?
No, Eureka is the HQIM that is being supported by the state. They are
Elementary.
pushing it hard.
Yeah, yeah.
I just wanted to note that Ms. Eaton is not. Well, go ahead.
You've got your coffee, we'll be okay. This kind of plays off into yours, which I had another question written down about. So our IMA doesn't cover all of our curriculum, right? Like we get like $2 million, we still pay a little bit out of pocket for our curriculum, right? Like how much do we know, I guess you can probably follow up with that because I didn't ask you for that number ahead of time, but it'd probably be good to know like how much, if IMA is 2 million and we spend 3 million on curriculum, so we're like $1 million out of general fund so that we have everything for everybody, that'd be probably just good to know as a going forward. So as we look to adopt new things, hey, we're already $1 million out of pocket, this will make us 1.5, just so we know about, because, I mean, obviously the state is not giving us enough money to buy enough textbooks to educate 24,000 kids, so how much of that falls back on the board? But yeah, you know, just a curiosity number so that we look at that going forward. I know y'all changed you realigned a little bit how you're supporting campuses this year, right, within curriculum type thing. What's the feedback you're getting, you know, from your campuses? Do they like how you've changed your realignment in terms of your visits and how engaged you are in your campuses? Do they want more of you? They want less of you? What are we looking at kind of for next year in terms of how we engage you all in the best way, and they want you coming and you're providing something of use to them? What's like your feedback and kind of maybe some changes for next year?
If you guys will just talk a little bit about the tiered,
Supports.
yep, yeah.
So we did implement the tiered supports, which is what you're talking about, where we looked at using an equity lens, right? Which campuses maybe need more of our support over others. So we will go back and we will realign that once we get things like STAR data, right? Because we are always making instructional decisions based on that. In terms of our campuses, I'll say that I get lots of positive feedback from the secondary principals about our campus coordinators, us going out, doing the instructional walks, providing the support during collaborative planning, doing those type of things. I can say that for me personally, I'm always about, like, for lack of a better term, how do we up the ante, right? So every year, if we keep doing the same things, then we're never gonna get better. So you keep those things in place that are effective. And then, like, for example, next year, we've spent a lot of time really trying to build capacity in collaborative planning, rolling out structures, having our coordinators in there helping to facilitate that. But after a year, if we keep just going in and doing that, then we're just gonna stay stagnant, right? So next year, what we're looking at is spending more time really using the coaching that we have purchased this year to say, okay, so now we should have a good foundation in what collaborative planning looks like. You may not need as much support in that, but where you need support maybe is in making sure that we get that ROI on the instructional coaching and sending our coordinators in to help directly with that aspect, and including more walkthroughs, making sure that what we're talking about in collaborative planning is actually taking place inside of the classrooms. So that would be one example, but I know that we have continuous conversations about, hey, what is effective this year, and then where do we need to, like, tweak it and kind of turn up I don't want to say turn up the heat, but just up the ante is the way I say it, because that's really, really important. And so I know for us, we always elicit feedback, especially from principals. So at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year, hey, tell us how we did, the good, the bad, the ugly, because we can only get better with that authentic feedback. And so that I know is coming from me at secondary. I know we align a lot, but there may be some things that Jennifer may want to add.
And I would say the same is true at the elementary level. One of the pieces of feedback that I hear most often is responsiveness. Thank you for being responsive to the data and to us when we ask for help. So we have the tiered support system and told principals right from the very beginning of the year, this is what you should expect from us. This is what will be happening. And you may ask for additional support above and beyond that, but this is your base layer. And so really it's a benefit for us when we receive that feedback from the staff and from the principals saying, thank you for what you've provided, and now we would like to request this additional piece. You had mentioned previously, would they want more of you? I would say that's always the case. Yeah. We've had the invitation, and I know that I've heard a number of times, if you could be here on campus every single day, we'd love that. Unfortunately, I cannot be on every of the 20 elementary campuses every day, but we do hear responsiveness and hear that they thank us for that responsiveness.
Yeah, because I think that's kind of weirdly, some of the feedback I've gotten is, because you think a lot of teachers are like, oh, districts down here bothering us, right? Like, actually, the feedback is the opposite. I think some of the more like tier 1 campuses, we're so used to seeing you a lot more, and all of a sudden they're feeling like they're not getting as much loving. Like they're like, where's Mr. Holmes? I want to talk about math, you know, type thing. And so I think when they shifted, I think there's some people just got used to a certain level of y'all being around, which is a compliment, right? That they want you on their campuses. That's an amazing thing. So I think continuing to check in with them, in terms of, are you not feeling the loving and what can I do? To make sure that even though you may be tier one, I know we want to keep you tier one, right? Like, we're going to keep you up here, we need to provide what we need for you, because they do seem to appreciate, especially your curriculum coordinators that wrote this stuff, being able to pick their brains and work on that, as many hours in the day as y'all can handle.
I think there's two pieces to that. Build capacity at the campus, like that's our goal.
Yep.
Just like Priscilla said, so that we can get that foundation in place, so then we can work on next level,
Yep.
next level, next level. Eventually, the perfect model is we're just here cranking out grassroots curriculum, and campuses are well-oiled machines. So it's just, if we don't have that one piece in place, that foundational piece, that system, that if one trainer steps out, another one can still step in and keep it going, that's the piece we're at now. We just need to over-communicate this now to principals about here's where we are, and as Priscilla says, next level, now ante up.
Yeah, that kind of
Yes, sir.
plays into what we were talking about yesterday, which is what does that instructional downline look like, and how do you make the most robust instructional downline that goes from an assistant superintendent through all of these people, and so that everyone is lined up, all working on the same thing, right? And there are people just laser focused on teaching kids, not getting someone from getting run over in the car line, type thing, is who are our people who this is what they do all day, every day, and getting the right people, obviously, into all of those positions.
And Ms. Ryan, I'm trying to allocate about 30 minutes per,
This
so,
is the big one.
well,
And that's actually
'cause-
my last, hold on, I'm looking. No, that was all I had. That's
Okay.
my last question.
and again, I do have time. If we have to spend more time, we'll spend more time, clearly, because it's important that we have the discussion. But 30 minutes set for curriculum, 30 for special ed. I know there's going to be a lot of questions with special ed, and then, of course, I think we can get the rest of it done as well. Ms. Eaton?
Hello. First of all,
And-
I apologize.
I was gonna say,
apologize
I appreciate
being late, but when I get an opportunity to spend time with my great-grandchildren, I take it. And they kept me up very late last night on, I don't even know what we were on, but we were playing some kind of game. Anyway, one of the things that I noticed that I've come across as I tour my schools is fear. And I do not want our teachers and our staffs to be afraid, to share with us when we come into their schools or on their campus. I really don't, okay? Because we cannot build a better Judson if we are not all working on the same page. And so I love it when I can go into a school, whether it's to do, I love doing the food bank and different things at different schools. But anyway, going in to read a book to the kids or whatever, I don't want our employees to be afraid to share with us. And that's important to me, very important. It has always been, I've said it from day one. You know my background is military. If a private can't tell me, you know what, First Sergeant, I don't have bullets, how can I expect him to shoot somebody? Please put that analogy together. If my teachers don't have what they need, how can I expect them to teach our children? Please, let's not intimidate our employees, please. They have to be able to share their concerns, their needs, and what they, because they're the ones with well, in the military, we say boots on the ground. They got feet on the ground. They're with our children. You guys are with our kids. If you can't tell us, hey, you know what, Miss Eden? I need to have this book. I need this book to teach this class. Who can tell me? You understand what I'm saying? So please, I want our employees to understand it's perfectly okay for them to share with us what their needs are in order for us to move forward with where we're going. We want Justin to be the best. And we can't do that if we don't know what you need, no matter what it is. We need to know what you need. So please don't be intimidated by anyone.
Thank you, Ms. Eden. Dr. Fields?
Ms. Eaton, I appreciate that. I would say this, though. I, too, was in the military, and you wouldn't find the airman in the general's office asking for bullets. I would say that there's a certain echelon that needs to happen. Now, I want to say publicly, across the district, everywhere, no one should feel intimidated, have fear of talking to anyone about anything, especially the people around this table. And if that's the case, please put that out of your mind. There's no reason for it. There will be no retaliation, because I've heard that as well. I mean, Ms. McKinney shows up at every board meeting and gives us an earful, and there's no retaliation. I would tell you, though, that we need to work efficiently. And if the door's not closing properly, it's not me that you want to come to, or the board. We have a system and a structure in place to get that door working properly. And the quickest way to get that done is to put in a work order and contact the maintenance department. Why didn't you change this one? I have no idea. I'm only trying to answer the question in the statement in which you just made. That's all I'm doing. I don't know about why we changed the form. You'd have to speak
We can
with
talk
legal
offline
or
since we're on
Mr.
curriculum.
Macias. So, but all I'm saying is that I would encourage all of us across the district to try and handle things at the lowest level. That's all I'm saying. But no one should feel fear or repercussion if they let a board member, the superintendent, a cabinet member, or anyone know anything. But I would also ask that we do have structures in place to get things done, and then we follow those as well. That's all. That's my only answer to your statement.
Well, thank you. And Ms. Eaton, during our board operating procedures, we will probably be talking about that as well. So we'll dive deeper into that part of it later.
I hope so, because the way it was worded prior to was perfect.
And we'll get to
And
understand.
offered employees an opportunity to speak to us, the board, and share with us concerns.
I assure you that's already been brought up, and so we'll talk about it.
Okay, we'll talk about it. We'll
During the
talk
board
about it.
operating procedure portion of it.
Just something really quick on curriculum.
We're at 40 minutes now. I'm kidding. Go ahead, Mr. As I said, it's important, and I expected curriculum and special ed to be the one that had the most. So please go right ahead, Ms.
Okay, I just wanted to comment, we were talking about curriculum. It's, when I visited Park Village and spoke with Principal Scott and Dr. West, they made it clear that not only was the curriculum useful in their success, but the team that they have put together that supports the teachers. And they didn't feel probably that every campus had such an effective team. So the team building, however they put that together, I think would be important to go along with the curriculum. Whatever they've done, and I asked them myself, can you duplicate that?
Same thing.
Yes, it's like, that's awesome. Just kudos to them. And swinging back around real quick to classroom management, because I didn't know where that was going to fit, but I know that's vital. And I get a lot of feedback on classroom management, and teachers really need the support and the help. So how long have we been using this Mr. Wong approach, or this year? So we don't have a sense of how effective it is yet. Be real interested in that. Oh, and this is,
He's the basis for college curriculum for education.
Correct. He and Fred Jones. Fred
Yeah.
Jones is big.
so then obviously there's been something good.
For thousands of years.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to say how long ago I graduated, but that was the basis of our studies in college. Yeah.
And it also,
Yeah.
And I can share as well that we have added an additional layer. So Harry Wong provides us with a fabulous foundation, but because we did receive feedback that we need even more in addition to that, we also have been implementing training in what's called conscious discipline. And that has been ongoing, that teachers can attend, and it's been quite well attended after school for both elementary and secondary.
Yes, so those happen once a month, and then in addition to that, at our new teacher cohort, it's usually an hour-and-a-half session. We make sure that every single time that we meet, that we dedicate a certain amount of time to specifically focusing on classroom management, pulling in Harry Wong's, talking about some of the things that maybe we're seeing in the classroom. So there are various opportunities to engage in classroom management professional development. And in addition to that, we have an amazing RTI specialist, behavior specialist that is available kind of the same way our coordinators are. And so we'll go out to campuses, do observations, help with teacher strategies. And so it's the classroom management piece is multifaceted because we realize that there is a need, there is a desire, and I think that seeing I can tell you the feedback from even our new teacher cohort, the part that they like most is classroom management and behavior management. So that's why we've continued to incorporate that. And so there's a lot of different things that are going on in terms of that, not only for our new teachers and DOI teachers, but for our veteran teachers as well.
Okay, and is there a robust system in place, support system in place, where if a teacher's having a discipline issue in their classroom, that there's someone they can immediately contact that goes in? Because I'm not always hearing that they get immediate help. Just wanted to be sure that was strong.
There's a system in place. It has to be activated from the campus level, but yes, there is.
Okay. Well, I'll be interested to hear how this is working. Thank you.
All right, well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Fields?
Yes, sir. So next up, we have special education. That will be Dr. Toppin's department as well. Dr. Toppin. Oh,
Dr. Armstead is approaching the podium.
Good morning, board members and Dr. Fields. You've received a copy of my program review in the board book, and I stand ready to answer any questions that you may have of our department.
We appreciate you being here this wonderful morning, and of course, I'll open it up to the board so we can get right to it. Ms. Faulkner, would you like to go first?
I was going to say, can we put it up there? Because I'm struggling with, my iPad and I are not friendly.
understood. Yes, ma'am.
It's on the, I don't know if you can read it, Ms. Faulkner, but they did put it on the screen.
Can we make that bigger, please? Oh.
You just have to scroll up.
I'm a little older, make it a little
Bigger?
No, of course, my concern over and over and over and over and over is recruitment and retention. And it's by no fault of our own. But I think we've become more creative about it, and we need to continue that because I know we didn't get to everything Thursday, but in my calculations, the two areas that we have the most vacancies in are special ed and paraprofessionals. And so continuing that recruitment is really, really, really important because we know that if you don't have the staff to do things, the curriculum doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So really, that's really the only comment I have because y'all kind of answered everything on Thursday with the report that was given. So, yeah.
I feel like I should make myself comfortable here. Maybe I might be here a minute. And I apologize for the raspy voice.
Ms. Eaton, do you have a
Actually
question?
getting over a sinus infection. Yes, ma'am.
It's not so much. It's not so much a question as a statement, and it's because of the sorority that I belong to. We're heavy in education. They blatantly just told me, hey, look, when children come into these independent schools, I don't want to call out their names, I don't want to be accused of anything, but these independent schools, if they have any issues, any problems, whether it be discipline, education, or whatever, they don't have to keep them. And so what's happening is that they're putting them out And I mean to the point that we have families where 2 of their kids can go there, but the other 2 can't, okay? And so we can't do that. We're not allowed to do that. And so we understand and realize that our numbers are increasing in that area. And so we need to do something, hire more teachers in that area, special. That's my area, okay? So whatever you need, we got you. Because we know as a board, we've been informed that this is continuing to come down the pipe. And there's nothing we can do because we can't say, you can't come here because you're a disciplinary problem or, you, whatever, okay? So, okay.
And I greatly appreciate that, by the way.
Yes, ma'am, we got you.
I do want to go back to Ms.
Share with us.
And
I
I'm
wanna
going
go
to
back to
yield
Ms.
the floor back to Ms. Faulkner. I
I'm
think.
sorry, so in the increase, I'm assuming, is that because you have to include the grant amount? I mean, that's like almost a $2 million increase. No, it doesn't matter, I still can't see.
Put your glasses.
I can't see with my glasses on. That's the problem. So we're going from 4 million to 6 million. Can you just touch on that?
Okay.
I mean, I know,
This is the sheet. It went backwards.
oh, you're right. You're right, it increased to 7. You're right. I'm looking backwards. So I guess it's 2 questions. Number 1, could you explain the increase? And number 2, have we secured this grant?
Yes, it
And
is.
that's rolled into,
Absolutely. It's the
Okay.
annual grant that we receive.
okay.
And if I could just step back to your earlier question, Ms. Faulkner. And you wanted to hear more about our recruitment process. I will tell you, that's okay. I will tell you that we have partnered with the HR department, and we are actively attending job fairs throughout the state of Texas. We've already hit about 4 or 5 already since March. And so we have staff, and they are conducting interviews on the spot. So, and we have been able to yield some good candidates from those job fairs. Some of the other things that we've done is we have partnered with several contracting agencies because where we fall short, we are partnering with contracting agencies to help us with that recruitment, with our recruitment efforts. We've also, we're working on creating a paraprofessional to teacher pipeline so that we can identify our paraprofessionals who they're in a program, they are maybe struggling to take to pass the teacher certification test. So we are identifying those paraprofessionals and being able to offer that assistance. We've partnered with study.com. So study.com can help our paraprofessionals who, again, are struggling on their certification test by providing test preparation services to them. We are also partnering with university educational programs as well as Region 20's top programs. So those are our ongoing efforts. Now, we know that it's more than just recruiting. We have to retain. And so we're focusing efforts on retention as well. And right now, what we're doing as far as we're looking for ways, how do we support our teachers more? Because especially in our self-contained classrooms, as we know, those can be very challenging positions. So what we're doing now is looking for ways in which we can embed coaching and modeling into the classroom. And with our staff, what we are proposing to do and we would like to do is to add 2 special ed lead teachers who would then go out to the various campuses and provide that embedded coaching and support right on the spot in our self-contained classrooms. We're also looking to increase our support to gen ed teachers as well, because we know that we have a lot of our kiddos who, especially in the area of autism, they are prepared and ready to really receive instruction in the gen ed setting, but sometimes we find that our gen ed teachers do not always know the right tools, or don't always have the right tools when working with our students. So we want to increase our level of support in that area as well. Now, right along with that, we continuously get and receive input from our teachers. We take advantage of Every month, we meet with our special ed lead teachers from every campus. And we hold a meeting every month, and we ask them directly. We're able to get direct feedback from our teachers. Tell us, what is it that you need? And I know that I've shared in previous board meetings before, some of that input they've given us, and it wasn't about money. We found that it wasn't about money. It really was about time. How do I effectively manage my caseload? How do I handle, we all know the level of paperwork that goes along with special ed. A lot. And so our teachers gave us some really good ideas of what, ideas that are workable. And so we turned around and we incorporated that, and those are some of the changes that you will see during the next school year. Now, I'll answer your question about down at the bottom, the historical budget. What you're looking at is our Special Ed Idea B Consolidated Grant. We receive that grant every year, okay? So the difference, what you're looking at here, because the numbers are not consistent, but if you look, and we'll go all the way back to 21-22, this is the amount that we received. 22-23, 21-22, we had ARP funds that were part of that amount, so that's why it looks higher. 22-23, we did not, and we were at our normal amount of $4.7 million. This year, 23-24, we actually received additional funds from TA. So we received a total of $7.2 million in grant funds. So that's why it looks different. We have already received our planning amount for this year, and we're expected to get, or anticipated to receive, $5.4 million in grant funds.
Thank you for the clarification. I had also spoke with Ms. Davis. She stepped out for a minute, but it was the grant funds that was the difference between last year and this year.
So we have less this year.
Yes.
No.
Well, for 24-25, our planning amount is $5.4 million.
So do we have any grants outstanding, any possibilities of making up that difference?
Well, yes, as a matter of fact, we have two pending right now. We did apply for the autism grant. That was just put out about 2 months ago, and we're waiting. We will know whether or not we receive that grant on the 27th of April. Yes. Yes.
And that's,
Thank you.
that's a isn't that more than one district? That's a
It is.
collaborative.
It's a collaborative grant. And this is Adrienne
Hi.
Chevalier.
I'm the program coordinator over Life Skills, ECSE, and Apple. We applied for the autism grant through TEA. I collaborated with Northeast, Marion, and New Braunfels on some of the things. They applied for the grant previously, and they implemented some programs specifically in ECSE that changes kind of how they did their ECSE program. I went over and toured some of the classrooms. I really liked what I saw because it really focused on independence and moving students kind of in a direction of being able to be successful in a general ed setting versus just a special ed setting. So, and I talked to Carrie quite a bit about it, and when I applied for the grant, it's basically going to support our ECSE classrooms, our Apple classrooms, and any general ed students that are in general class and that have autism that are struggling with behavior, because that seems to be the area that we need the most support in, and there's a lot of coaching built into the grant. The grant is currently in review. We checked the status yesterday. We hope to hear something next week on whether or not it gets approved or if we have to rework it. But there's a lot of support, teacher support specifically built into the grant to make sure that teachers have the support they need in working with students with autism.
And then lastly, we are just about to apply for the continuity grant. And basically, TA has made funds available, a total of $20 million available for districts to try to have their contracting services expenses reimbursed. As we all know, that's a large area for or large expense for us, for our department. So that is a grant that we will apply for. We will apply prior to May 10th for that grant.
Ms. Davis?
I just wanted to add that we just received notice. We were contesting the reduction in SHARS reimbursement, and we just received notice a couple of days ago that it was denied. So that it's a shortfall of 1.3 million.
That is correct.
Can you
And-
explain the whole SHARS concept, please?
Yes, absolutely.
No, it was the state.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Exactly, correct. No, I mean, for people who don't quite understand, exactly,
ma'am.
and it's huge.
Oh, yeah,
Could
so,
you explain?
so that was one area in which came as a surprise. But basically the way in which we had been billing for SHARs, suddenly we were no longer able to bill in that manner. And basically, we were no longer able to bill for services provided by our paraprofessionals. And then also bus monitors. So that was removed. And so therefore, that resulted in a decrease of 1.3 million for us as a department. And it wasn't isolated to Judson. It was throughout the state. And so much so that Region 20 has partnered with districts trying to help and trying to assist districts with being able to recoup funds.
And SHARS stands for School Health and Related Services, and those are the reimbursements specifically for special needs programs.
Yes.
So I do
Go ahead, Ms.
notice
Faulkner.
that Ms. Peña's standing there. So can we maybe hit on how this affects transition?
Okay, and yes, this is Teresa Pena. She is our transition coordinator for the district.
Morning. What specifically are you referring to? Are you money?
What are our plans?
Supports?
What are our plans? Where is anything transition built into this? And maybe explain the difference between special ed and transition for everyone, because it's embedded.
Okay, so transition services are meant to assist our students receiving special education services while they're in school, preparing them for that post-secondary outcome. So we are identifying what their post-secondary goal is. The state of Texas says that begins at age 14. We in Judson ISD begin that process at 6th grade or earlier if needed in identifying a post-secondary goal in the area of education and training, employment, and independent living if applicable. Not everybody's going to need an independent living goal, but every student is required to have an education and training and employment goal. So our job in the district is to then have a set of coordinated activities that are going to help our students facilitate movement toward that post-secondary goal, which includes their course of study, their educational, instructional supports, related services. All of those go into that transition planning, as well as connecting to any outside agencies that could provide long-term supports and services or employment supports and services. So that's transition in a nutshell. Transition drives the development of the IEP. That's our ultimate goal, is to plan for a successful post-secondary outcome. So that being said, the way we have, with the way Dr. Armstead has allowed me to put some pieces together is we, in the state of Texas, there are enormous waiting lists. Our state is huge. Our state has hundreds of thousands of individuals on waiting lists to be provided services. So our goal in our district is to target our elementary students so that they can be placed on these interest lists, so that by the time they get out of high school, ideally into the community, they have now come up on these lists and are receiving services in the community. Whereas if we wait until age 14, like Texas says, they could be in their 30s before they ever receive services. So we've been targeting elementary. This year, we have targeted our ECSE, elementary self-contained classes, because they should be our priority group. They're the ones who are truly going to need that. And it has been quite successful. We've had 73 elementary referrals to the ARC of San Antonio for connections to long-term supports and services. That doesn't mean we stopped at our middle school and high school. We're still encouraging, trying to catch any students that still aren't connected. We are partnering with other agencies. Our transition symposium this year, we partnered with other community agencies in order to come together to set a precedent in our community. We are the first in our area to have partnered with agencies to put on a community resource fair for our families. So that was huge, and we partnered with Partners Resource Network and the ARC of San Antonio to put that together. And we continue to have our partnership with Texas Workforce Solutions Vocational Rehabilitation. So we are continuing to move forward with making sure that Judson ISD is open to community agencies, ensuring our parents that we want them to be connected to agencies and we need them to be connected with agencies so that we can then all work together to pool our resources and collaborate in order to help our students be connected and have successful post-secondary outcomes. Did that cover what you were looking for, Ms. Faulkner? Okay.
Even for me, you know, if you don't ever experience the secondary part, because ultimately our goal for all of our students, no matter what program they're in, is to come out of our schools productive citizens. Now that looks different for every student, especially who has gone through special education, but success is success. And so I think it's important to hear how we handle the success post-secondary.
Ms. Faulkner, were you finished? Yes, I am. Ms. Eaton?
I can speak to this personally. One of my grandchildren went through the entire program, and I in fact, he's one of your star athletes also, Aaron Strickland.
One of my star students.
Yes, yes, that's the jewel in my crown. But HEB, great partner, and he still works there. And I love it because when he talks about how he has a 501k and he's doing this with his money, I'd be like, okay, he's doing more than I ever did at his age. But it's all because of that program. And I appreciate you all. Wonderful. Thank you. And I encourage parents, please, when the teachers reach out to you about the things that are possibilities for your children and potential programs that they can be involved in, please respond, because I'm telling you, it's awesome. It's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Eaton. He's a wonderful grown man now. But I would like, on that note, with the helping our parents understand, we did establish a special education playlist on YouTube. Shout out to Mr. Tovar in there, who has been essential in helping me cultivate that playlist. So that our parents have information. They can't always attend my monthly sessions that I hold to cover a variety of topics, Medicaid waiver programs, ACOG intake process, basics of guardianship, alternatives to guardianship, Social Security, that's a huge one. So we record those, and Mr. Tovar has created a special education playlist that's available on YouTube, and we have our flyers plastered all over at every campus, and I send those links out to families so that they can access that, and we have a number of views regularly on those videos, so our families are able to access information, which I think is also very important in this process.
Like, any other questions?
I do. I was waiting for this side of the table. Are you done?
No.
I figured we'll just keep going.
Go ahead, Ms. Ryan.
Just a few comments and a few little questions. You know, a lot of it, you know, I'm just waiting on Stetson because a true workload analysis, you know, because caseload numbers mean one thing, but the workload of individual students, really, that's what is going to help, because 1 to 25, 1 to 46, these ratios that some of these campuses are on right now, like, it's just not sustainable, right? Like, we can't do what we need to do for kids to the fidelity that we want to do it at, if those are our ratios. And God bless those of you out there, special education teachers, who are hanging in there with us. Thank you, because 46 is a lot, and we know that it's taking everything out of you right now. So whatever we can do to get, you know, whatever we have to do, because strategically, this is what, you know, Dr. Gibson calls the low-hanging fruit, right? Which is so many of these kids are right there. They're one question away from passing their STAR. They're one question away from mastering and all of that, that if they just get a little bit more, like, the growth that you're starting to see, but imagine if we weren't at 1 to 46. The growth that this district can see in some of those areas is strategically going to be huge for us once we can get the program to the staffing to get to that level of fidelity. We're going to see huge gains. So, between human resources and Stetson and all the work of Dr. Armstead, I think we're going to do great. When you talked about paperwork, just a little note what you might want to go cheat or talk to your NEISD friend, because paperwork does come up a lot, right? Their board was like interrogating. Teachers are saying, oh my gosh, so much paperwork type thing is. If you go look at their April 8th meeting, what their department put together was, where does all the paperwork come from, right? So they went person by person within the special education system, and where does the requirement come from, right? Federal government requires this form, state of Texas requires this form, Region 20 is required, because to them it appeared like their special education department was just sitting there dreaming up paperwork, right? Like, let's make teachers more busy, let's make everybody more busy in the process. So we have a pretty educated board in terms of, I think we understand that you're not making up paperwork requirements, but from a district standpoint, and especially when you bring new teachers and stuff in too, just knowing the source. So, and because they already done the work on it, like we might be able to just export that thing. And it may just be helpful for teachers to know and everybody know what's your responsibility within the special education realm and what is the source of that paperwork, federal requirement, state requirement, district requirement, and how it helps. So I just happened to watch that board meeting and saw that, and I'm like, oh, that's helpful. I already know where it comes from, but it may be helpful to all the other people who feel like we're just making stuff up in terms of extra work. How's the CPAC going? This was a big initiative by you guys over the last couple years to give special education parents a voice, right, within the district and let those who have gone through the process give feedback on how it can be better. So can you give us like a 30-second, because I used to go to those things and I've been really busy lately, but I'd like to hear what's going on with it, but how's that helping your department?
Absolutely. Let me answer the question regarding the CPAC, and if I can, just take a minute to go back to some of your earlier comments. First of all, CPAC, we are so excited that we are entering year 3. It's hard to believe it's already been in place for 3 years now, but it's going wonderfully. We have a great partnership with our group of parents that we work with, and we receive regular feedback, and their feedback has been incredible. It has resulted in immediate changes that we were able to do, and we come back and we report those changes. And it's just a really great collaboration of making sure that our parents have input into our policies, our practices. And again, they have been able to give us a wealth of information in the form of ideas. So it's going wonderfully. We're excited to get started with our 3rd year. I just want to step back regarding the caseload sizes. We did work with our teachers to establish what they consider to be manageable caseload numbers. And so we established at the high school, at secondary, 15 students for 1 teacher was a manageable caseload size. And then for elementary, we're able to expand out just a little bit more, but we average about, for 1 teacher, 25 students, and that was a manageable number. So we continue to be very watchful. We monitor our caseload numbers on a regular basis, and then when necessary, if we start to increase, which happens all the time, then it is necessary to stop and address it at that point to keep it from continuing.
I just had one other question I wrote down as I was going through the TASB pay survey. I noticed one thing related to your department. I know last year we moved again, a problem we had in the past, I think it was even before you got here, right? We were contracting out LSSPs, right? And we were backlogged, beyond backlog. Nobody was meeting 90, this is forever ago. And then we decided in-house LSSPs, and took us a while to hire. So now most of our work is being done by our in-house people. We're not having to rely as much on outside contractors. And so last year in the compensation plan, those people got changed to 226. So in this year's compensation plan, it looks like 226. I looked at TASB, and it's got them back at a portion of them 202s, which is most of the people on campuses, and then a handful of 226s, which are probably what, summer coverage? So is that, just thoughts on that, since we're specializing in sped right now, that's a little bit of a cost savings because having all of them here all summer, may not, have been, we may not need all of that.
Okay. And Ms. Davis,
Yeah,
please.
the reason for the several different days are, the reason for the different days are because some of those are grandfathered positions. One of the things we're trying to do is make sure that whatever position we have set, that we get them all there. So you'll see, especially in the TASB study, they put both days.
Yep.
In the current one that we have, just to avoid confusion.
Yep.
We wrote the number of days that that position should be, not what it used to be in the past.
Okay. Is that something Stetson can help look at too, just to see what our LSSP caseload, like timeline requirement should be? Like how many should you have all year so that you're covering all your summer stuff? And then how many of them could just be on because I think we were able to recruit a good handful of LSSPs in-house because of a summer work, because of a school work schedule. Like these are like moms and dads and who have kids and things like that. So I'm worried about if we go up to 226 for everybody, we may lose some of those people who have chosen to work in education versus the outside world. I don't want to do something that might lose some of them too, especially if we don't necessarily need everybody here all summer. So, but just something you'll look at before we head to, compensation plan later on in the year. And maybe, if we don't change anything now, maybe Stetson can come back with some recommendations for next year.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's all I got.
Two real quick things. I did have a parent reach out, and their student is homebound. And a simple little thing, but just to think about it, they didn't get asked to be put in the yearbook. I know it's really small, but we want inclusivity with all of our students. And so when they get overtures, hey, buy our yearbook, but their student's not in there because they never made an effort to bring the student to put pictures in there. It's a small thing, but I know we have 100 things to do, but I figured this might be the right time to bring that to your attention to make sure that all of our students in SPED are being included. And again, not that there's an intent not to, but sometimes these things happen. And then also assessments. Are we doing, I guess, a lot of paperwork means there must be a lot of assessments. So you feel like we're at a good level, or is there still things that we are not doing because we don't have capacity? To the point of my colleagues, whatever it is you need, what can we do? Because I know that there might be opportunities for that. What is your position on that?
I think we're in a good place right now. We continue to monitor that. Well, I will tell you that it has been necessary to seek assistance from contracting agencies. We do work in partnership with AIM to handle any overflow as far as evaluation requests that we may have. And so it has been necessary to do that for the last 2 years as we continue to increase the number of evaluations that we conduct per year. It is something that we're monitoring, and it may result in perhaps the addition of another evaluation staff member. But again, right now, we're able to maintain what the need that we have by partnering with contracting agencies.
Okay. Thank you. Any final questions? Comments? Go ahead, Ms. Knappert.
When we're using acronyms, as Ms. Davis was kind enough to say what it means, could we try to spell it out?
Give an explanation.
'Cause not every, like an LLSP, just for the watching public too. Not everyone knows what these things mean. And CPAC.
Special Ed Parent Advisory Council.
Okay. And LLSP?
And now we refer to our LSSPs as SPs, school psychologists.
Oh,
And my apologies for that when you live in a world of acronyms.
I know, but I'm just thinking of, our audience
Absolutely.
and me sometimes.
Yes.
So, I don't know them all. Thank you.
I think sometimes we forget that we are blessed to have so many educators on our board. Not every board is like this. I think out of the 7, 5 of us are educators. That's a rarity. Look it up.
Well, we appreciate your presentation. Thank you. Thank you all for your time.
If I could make one final note, and that is this. And because I know that SPED is such a busy world that there's a lot that sometimes gets missed, but I want to recognize this fact about special ed is that
Miss,
despite all the challenges that we've faced, the shortages, the classroom sizes, over the last 2 years, we've made more gains than we have in the last 10. And so we're very excited about that, and we celebrate that all the time. And this is not just on the results-driven accountability report, it's also according to the TAPER report as well. So I don't want to lose sight of that. We are currently exemplary in 15 out of, and it says 26 on here, but it's 23. We're exemplary in 15 out of 23 indicators according to TEA self-assessment. So we continue to thrive. Our students continue to thrive. So I just wanted to end on that note, and thank you for your time this morning.
Well said. Thank you, Dr. Armstead. Thank you. So next up, sir, is bilingual. So Dr. Saunders.
Good morning, guys. Good morning, board. Dr. Fields, you've received the information about the bilingual program in the board book. I am more than happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
all right, let's jump right into it. Ms. Ryan?
Oh, we're going this way?
We're jumping right into it. Ms. Ryan?
Okay. All right, everybody knows dual language is my jam. And really, so it's one of those very broad because this is dual language, this is emergent bilingual, and this is LOTE, all thrown into
Correct.
one department. So first, let's talk about dual language in our dual language program. I should have asked, ahead of time. Do we know about how many students we have participating in dual language right now? If not, I'm sorry, I should have asked you.
So what I'll do is when we're finished, I'm going to just hand you this report.
Okay.
It's broken down by grade level. It's not outlined by campus.
Okay.
So you'll just be able to see it's broken down by chunks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm constantly looking at the districts around us because we changed our model about 4 to 5, I can't remember, it was 4 or 5 years ago.
4 years ago.
Right? So we went from a two-way dual language, switched it over to a one-way, moved campuses, added bilingual immersion or Spanish immersion type thing, which was very different than what the districts down in our, NEISD, very different than an SAISD model. It was the COMAL model at the time. And so it feels like it's the time, 4 or 5 years into a program, to kind of look at where that is and look at what everybody else kind of around us is doing. And again, I was watching the April 8th NEISD board meeting and looking at some of their numbers. And they have over almost 7,000 students in dual language programs in NEISD. It's 12% of their entire student population being, obviously, emergent bilinguals.
Sure.
And native English speakers. And they have dual language only campuses, 100%, wait lists, overflow campuses, because the demand for that program is astronomical. And I got a feeling our numbers are not that high.
We're not at 12%, I can tell you that. Correct.
Yep. Over 20% of their emergent bilinguals are in that two-way dual language program or on one of their dual language only campuses, if they can get into it off the wait list type thing. So a dual language program has great academic outcomes. There's so much research on how it propels both the emergent bilinguals and it propels the native English speakers academically. And are we looking at doing something more robust with our program? Because for me, the strategic look on this is staying competitive in the educational marketplace, right? Having programs that make Judson desirable and have people wanting to come here and having to have lotteries and wait lists, right? Like building that. So what are other people offering that is highly popular that will make people choose Judson over another district or over a charter school or a private school, especially if vouchers come around, and then we really have to incentivize people to stay here. So, we have I know you and I have briefly talked about this a long time ago, we have a new elementary school opening, right? potential dual language, have we, what are we looking at in order to, if other districts are all expanding, having great success with this program, what are we looking to potentially change or expand to help us in that competitive marketplace?
So lots of questions in
Yes,
there.
sorry.
No, not a problem.
Big.
Let me give you kind of an overall, and
Yeah.
then we'll see if it answers. And Dr. Fields or Mr. Brooks, if I share something that I should not be, just be like, cut the mic.
No, feel
Okay.
free, feel free.
So we did have a conversation yesterday, Mr. Brooks and I talked about numbers at specific campuses.
I'm sorry, the
right.
chatter is that we do not have a quorum here, so we've broke a quorum of board members.
No worries.
But I think that,
Potty break.
They're like, Saunders gets up to the mic, we're out.
5-minute break?
we'll take a
We're halfway.
5-minute break. We'll take a 5-minute
No
break.
worries.
I had noticed that. We'll take a 5-minute break. We're going to go ahead and get started again, if you don't mind, if we could have a little quiet. Dr. Saunders, if you would like to continue.
Yes, sir.
Where you were, I appreciate your patience.
Absolutely.
So we now have a quorum again. Go right ahead.
Okay, so Ms. Ryan, your questions. So we are in the process of evaluating, looking at numbers, looking at programs at some of our elementary schools. Tentatively, we're talking about opening up elementary number 1 with those bilingual programs in place. We don't have any specifics, but it is definitely on the radar. And I think we actually had this conversation, you know, about Mark Twain, having something that maybe looks along those lines. I did provide you guys with current numbers. So as I was saying before, it's broken down by grade level, but it does have the campus outlined on there. And then on the back side, I thought this might be helpful as well, is the campuses right now, the elementary campuses that house those specific programs. And then to go back to the question earlier about, you had mentioned LOTE, which stands for, Ms. Stanford, languages other than English. Right now, predominantly, well, I'm not even going to say predominantly, right now it's Spanish. Dr. Fields actually had a conversation with campus principals on Wednesday or Thursday about the roles and responsibilities of campus principals and program directors at the campus level to recruit students into those programs, because it's not fiscally responsible to have a French class with 4 kids. But if you're, and the analogy he used, you should be out there in the hallway with a poster, we have a French class, we have a French club, like come one, come all. So the idea is to start building those programs so that we can offer languages. Right now, it's just Spanish, so that we can offer languages other than. We do have some certified teachers in the district who are ready to kind of flip the switch on that once we get student involvement. I think that, does that answer any of them?
Yes, and a
Okay.
little bit. So where dual language kind of then plays in sometimes into load is what we do that any ISD doesn't is once you finish your dual language in 5th grade, we have no progression after that.
What does it look like in 6th, 7th,
What
and
does it
8th?
look like in middle school? So other districts will, just have a bilingual teacher, and in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they'll take social studies and Spanish, and they'll have a bilingual social studies teacher, just so they are routinely getting instructed in Spanish, again, like they have been throughout their dual language. So, NEISD has over 1,000 students in their middle school that are in that program, and then as they continue on in high school, they've got, another 300 kids that are doing still a dual language pathway. And as an alternative to playing into LOTE 2 is, and playing into the 7 schedule next year, the number of opportunities to accomplish what you need to accomplish to graduate high school and be competitive is going to shrink, right? We're going to go from 10 down to 7. Which now, are we relooking middle school at what opportunities at high school level classes, specifically foreign, LOTE classes, increasing that capacity at our middle schools? Because when you get to your 7 and you're a freshman, right, you got your 4 core classes, I got soccer, I got, my CTE path. Trying to fit 4 years of a foreign language if you want to be competitive for a great school, or even continuing on to a 5th year AP Spanish and follow on or other languages type thing. If you don't front load some intro classes in middle school, it is going to hamstring some of our higher performing students in being able to have room in their schedule for both AP Physics and Chemistry, and AP Biology, and all of those other things that we want our kids to be able to take. So like we have some middle schools where you may not be eligible to take Spanish 1 until 8th grade, right? Because we've only given you authorization for 1 Spanish teacher. And because you could make everything up on a 10 schedule, right, on a block 5 by 5. And then the dual language kids, we're just out of everything, right? They just didn't speak Spanish for 6th and 7th grade. And then all of a sudden, maybe they could take Spanish 1 in 8th grade. So being on that path to AP Spanish, they didn't have that opportunity. So, when we look at what we're offering on our master schedule at middle schools, I hope it's more things that lead to graduation requirements, right? and efficiency in that, because foreign language is a graduation requirement. You know, a music class might not be, or some of the other things are not, but can we maximize those types of opportunities for kids in middle school?
That is always the intention, to try to push what we can down to middle school from high school so kids can open up their schedule a little bit more at the high school level. However, just like we're having a challenge in finding SPED teachers, we're having a challenge in finding Spanish teachers because they can make more money in the private sector now. And so what we're trying to do is staff our high schools with Spanish teachers, and if we have extra, or we can choose to add more at the middle school level, we're trying to do that. But right now, it's challenging to get high school Spanish teachers because it is a requirement, along with fine arts, along with 4 years of math and all the other things that you have to have in order to graduate from high school. So it's a shortage in the area because the private sector is offering more opportunities.
Yeah. And in those cases where, you know, fall comes and we don't have somebody, so all of a sudden, you know, seventh graders aren't getting into Spanish 1, or even sixth graders could take Spanish 1 if they're going to continue on to like a plan to go to a Spanish 5, because I know they won't get high school credit for Spanish 1, but they can knock that out and then do 2 through 5 for their 4 years of credit, you know, then let's look at some alternatives. You know, are we pushing virtual school network, right? Because they can go take Spanish 1 on BSN. If it's not available and we can't find a teacher at Judson Middle School next year for, you know, Spanish 1 for some kids, if they want to go do that via virtual school network, you know, and are a self-directed learner and has great home support and can do that, you know, maybe we need to publicize some of those opportunities. So at least it's out there. You know, people choose not to take advantage of it, you know, that's on them. But I think there's some underutilized programs that will allow kids to progress while we work on changing some of our work on recruiting people and work on making things more robust academically for them.
You know, Priscilla talked earlier about upping the ante, right? One of the things I think that is like grossly overlooked is, yes, it is a graduation requirement, but then what the ultimate outcome of that is, how many kids are earning their biliteracy seal? How many are getting their biliteracy certificate, right?
Yep.
And we're moving the needle in that area. So I think that's when you talk about like, what is that next step? What does that look like besides just meeting the graduation requirement? And when you talk about VSN, Virtual School Network, they also have the opportunity to take languages that we may not have a certified teacher on hand. They can actually access those languages. And I think that's we're getting much better at utilizing that. But although, yes, we're in South Texas and Spanish is very important, we also have other founding languages in this area that should students already have a little bit of exposure to, that's an opportunity for us.
Yes.
So we do have the opportunities there.
Okay, great.
I appreciate you said that, Ms. Ryan. I just want to remind everyone that even if we have it available, if there's not enough students who elect to take it, that's when we have to go to, the virtual network. And maybe that's the better option, because we can put a teacher over there, but if only 7 kids sign up for it, then,
Well, in the harbor, like it's not even on the choice sheet at some grades at some middle schools, because they're like, we're not going to get a person. So they don't even put it on there. So like the demand level isn't even able to be measured.
Correct.
Because it doesn't even show up on
You're
the list.
absolutely right.
They're
And
like,
that's
let's
what we
just
have
give
to
them
look
3
at.
options, circle these 3, circle 2 out of the 3 and move on, right? Let's not make it complicated. But then you have some other parents who know how to read the middle school catalog, and I'm like, but I want this class, type thing. But let's, make that available for everyone, and then see where, if you're given this myriad of choices are, and then, pare that down from there.
Yes, ma'am.
I think the only other one on this one
Can I
have-
add to that real quick before we
Oh, yeah,
go?
it's on the same topic.
Have we ever thought, and I don't even know if this is a possibility, have we ever thought of making our foreign language teachers itinerant?
Yes.
Okay.
So there was, again, it goes back to what Dr. Fields was saying about interest. We have an ASL teacher. Dr. Duhart-Toppin, if I get this wrong, help me out, please. I think she is housed at Veterans. But the conversation was, if we could get enough interest at both Veterans and Judson, correct. But like the story I shared earlier when we spoke with principals about on Wednesday about out in the hallway with a poster.
Correct.
Like we've got French, we've got ASL, we've got German. We have to have, in order to get that return on investment and fiscal responsibility, we've got to have kids engage in wanting to take the course. So now it's a matter of singing the praises early, getting the program out there early so kids can start seeing this as an option, and then making it work from there.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is maybe promotion needs to be a focus on that.
Yes.
So that we can think outside the box and maybe have that teacher travel to different campuses and, I don't know.
And it's getting the counselors need to get read in and educated on these classes, right? So that they're out there
One
sitting there
second.
with the degree plans and selling them. And when they're sitting, they need to be sitting down with these students and being like, listen, you want what? You want to go to Howard University? I'm going to need you to take 4 years of a foreign language.
Right.
What language are you interested? What do you want to do when you grow up? What? You want to move to Japan and do architecture? Awesome. How are we going to get you Japanese class? You know, and finding out what kids want to do and building those career plans, and all of our counselors, not just the college counselor, not just the career, knowing what those kids need.
Agreed.
And then pushing them. Like, I didn't get an option from my high school career counselor. Like, he told me what I had to do. I'm like, I want to be here. And he's like, well, this is what you need to do. And I just said, okay. And like, I just did it. But now it's like, I feel like kids are getting too many choices. And like, we're the grown-ups, right? Their parents and the people in the schools are their grown-ups who that they look to for advice. So everyone in the whole program needs to be advising those kids. And because we have some parents who don't know, we have first generation college kids, right? Like their parents don't know what classes they need to go to college. So that's where we're in there as the experts to help them figure that part out.
And Ms. Ryan, Ms. Eden.
Yeah, I only have one more question,
something.
so I'll let Ms. Eden
Go right ahead, Ms. Eden. You're good?
I had a question too.
All right, Ms. Rodriguez.
For our students who successfully complete dual language or bilingual in grades K through 5, are we offering them a high school credit for Spanish in that?
No.
or-
Yes. Well, not fifth grade.
No.
If they go K through 5?
Yes,
If
I'm
they
sorry.
successfully.
Yes, K-5, it has to be the entire program.
Okay.
But I actually think they can enter in first grade, first through fifth.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Got it.
I'm sorry, I thought you said fifth grade only. I was like, yeah, no.
Great. No.
Yes.
That they go the whole, my microphone might have not turned
No,
on.
no worries, no worries.
Thank you.
Okay,
Go ahead, Ms. Eden.
because I realize I'm the dinosaur on the board, okay? When did it stop being a requirement that you had to take a foreign language class to graduate from high school?
You do.
So,
We're saying to get into
Where are
the
we
Ivy
tripping
League
up at?
schools, they don't take just Spanish 1 and 2. They take Spanish 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if you're trying to go to Harvard, Yale, Stanford, they're not going to just.
and we're not
accept-
offering that?
No,
No,
we
we
do.
are.
We go up to 5. But what Ms. Ryan's trying to say is that if you want to get to 5, Spanish 5.
It has to start in
in 4
middle
years,
school.
it has to start in middle school.
And those,
Shortage of teachers, ma'am.
And if I'm taking digital media and I got a double blocked CTE my senior year because of a practicum or an education, a lot of our practicums of our CTEs, if you haven't front loaded Spanish 1 and 2 and potentially 3 versus virtual network, you know, you're going to have a hard time with those junior and senior internships, practicums, and all those other things that are going to bulk up your schedule. Yep. So we got to rethink and front load. Yes.
and they do also have the opportunity to take the AP exam as well,
Yep.
which gives them the opportunity to
College
earn a
credit.
college credit.
But I also want us to, we have tried in Judson ISD. Yes, we need the teachers. We have tried in Judson ISD because we started French. And then the teacher left and we couldn't find another one. We went to virtual where they were taking it online and it was not successful. So we really have to pay attention to what types of courses we're going to be offered if we're looking at virtual, because if it's a real hard language to do, kids are not going to be successful, and we've wasted a semester on something that's not going to give you what you need.
Is it on the course selection sheet in middle school?
Yes. And the Spanish is on the course selection sheet at the middle school level. But again, numbers drive classes. And so if we don't have the interest, we can't do it. If we have a wider interest in Spanish 1, we will offer Spanish 1 to as many kids that we can do it, because those classes are maxing out at 30 at the schools that we're offering it at the middle school. But if that Spanish 1 teacher is maxed out at 30, 6, 7 periods a day, she cannot teach Spanish 2 also.
Ms. Ryan,
And I'm sorry, my last question, again, sorry, I have a few favorite areas, and this is one of mine, is bilingual pre-K, all right? We went to half day on the pre-K 3. And we lost a lot of kids, right? We lost a lot of qualified kids. I mean, we understand we couldn't pay for the unqualified, like, we weren't getting any money from the state, so we couldn't have everybody there. And we were only gonna get half day. But my concern is that we've potentially, I think, shrunk our emergent bilingual kids who are coming into pre-K 3 are now minuscule because it's a 3-hour program.
So two things, and help me out, because I gave you guys all my reports. I think right now we have 114 bilingual pre-K students.
Okay.
Thank you. So, yes, 114 right now, bilingual pre-K students.
Okay.
So it goes back to the issue we talked about earlier with these campuses that house these bilingual students. You can't go to Woodlake Elementary as a bilingual student. There's not a bilingual programming path there. So then what we have to do is we have to send them to the closest pre-K that has those bilingual units. And if you guys remember back to September, Pashaw, Hopkins, Spring Meadows were busting at the seams with their bilingual.
Yep.
So then what we had to do was kids that went to Candlewood typically would go to Pashaw for bilingual, and then Pashaw exploded, and we had to send those kiddos to Spring Meadows. So it's about being strategic with where those programs are placed, which goes back to the conversation we had earlier about looking at those programs intensively, laying some groundwork for elementary 21, and figuring out what that would look like. Because you're right, if we grow it in pre-K, it's only going to multiply as we go through.
Yes, and if we lose essentially a whole year of early childhood literacy out of those kids because the parents can't accommodate or don't want to accommodate a 3-hour program, because that's very, very challenging to find daycare at 10:30 in the morning, or, have somebody at home when you're working a couple of jobs, I don't want to lose out on some of the gains we made the last couple of years by getting those kids super early. I think we've already started to see that in some of like the first and second grade as they've gone through the program. I'm worried that data is going to trend down if we lose too many of them. So just let's keep an eye on like that. I want to get those kids and any kids we can get early and identified and as much support as they possibly can. And bilingual pre-K, I think, sets a lot of our kids up
Because
for
it's about
success.
capitalizing on the language acquisition they already have.
Yes.
Right? And then building on it.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
And being able, and having those bilingual teachers where you're teaching introductory math stuff in their native language, and they are accessing that curriculum because they completely understand it, So the value of a bilingual program and receiving core instruction in your native language early in order to get those outcomes later
Yes,
on
ma'am.
is super important. So, all right, that's all I have, sorry.
Ms. Eaton?
Again, I guess because of my age, I run the gamut on the spectrum here. Great-grandchildren at Pashaw.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, when they were there, I can tell you that the program was in full effect when my great-grandchildren were at Pashaw. And I had a pre-K 3, a kindergarten and first grader there, and the benefits that they gained from being in the classroom with those students that spoke another language benefited them and the other students. Because, no kidding, I mean, there were afternoons at my house, I'd have 7 or 8 kids running around my house that didn't speak a word of English. But my grandkids, they understood what they were saying, and I was like, okay, as long as everybody's safe and happy, and we ate, and, their parents would come and get them, and everybody was happy. So, God, I wish there was a way we could just get that program back the way it was, okay? I'm not saying this for you to fix, because I know there's nothing you could do to fix it, but for our governor and our politicians to understand, that program was extremely beneficial. That's all I got.
Yes, ma'am.
And I guess my only comment would be, too, that we did receive the report from TASB that showed what our stipends and also forth were for bilingual teachers, and just, of course, evaluate that in the budget, because I know that it's highly competitive. They're looking for bilingual teachers. Obviously, in the whole vein of retention, I'd like to retain, so some additional consideration about either keeping it competitive or any of those things would be appreciated. So I get this point, any final questions so we can move forward? All right, thank you, Dr. Saunders.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate the presentation. So we were going to stop at 11, but I know we had some folks come in early on this Saturday, and I want to make sure that I hear from everyone. So I'm going to probably have a hard stop at 11:15, which means we have a few more departments, and let's go ahead and move forward. So the next one,
We'll have the rest come up and just answer any questions the board may have.
Sure.
So next up is career and technology education.
Good morning, board members. Dr. Fields, I am ready for any questions you may have for me.
I appreciate that enthusiasm. Do we have anyone has, I'm sorry? Are there any questions? We'll start with Ms. Ryan. Go ahead.
Just a quick one. I mean, obviously, you know, I'm out at CT stuff all the time and love everything we're doing because we're producing, you know, whatever is going to be the future residents of our Judson ISD because people stay here. The only kind of feedback I've gotten out in the community is how well are we surveying the labor pool within Converse, Live Oak, Universal City, right? Like, what is our community demanding we produce in adults? With those economic development councils or their city managers or the other people, you know, chambers of commerce, because they get lots of feedback on things they think we're missing, right? Like, we need more HVAC people, we need more electricians, we need more people who lay tile. I don't know, I just paid a well guy $395 for a service call. I'm like, well, clearly we need a well company like CTE Program because they're making mad cash. So improving how tied into the community we are so that we make sure we are producing what our community needs, because 90-something% of the people stay here and never leave, that, you know, this is home. And then, so us being out there with them, and then how are we increasing them coming in with us? So like each of our career paths, we've got like a little committee, right? Like in cosmetology, we've got someone who works in the cosmetology world advising
Yes, ma'am.
you all on that. I think there's a lot more people that are always approaching me about how to get involved in that kind of stuff, and figuring out how to tie them in, because once they become invested in Judson, right? Like as soon as we get Holt involved in agricultural stuff, all of a sudden they're donating an internship, right? So we bring them in, and then our students end up getting something out of that. So I think, you know, Kim Cathy is out there all the time, you know, with me, meeting all these people at the Tri-Counties and NEPs and all of that. I think if we can work the next year on improving that engagement and synergies, that we're getting them to the right people and getting more people involved, and whether that's Judson Education Foundation board members or on the CT committees, let's get our community way more entangled with Judson so that everybody's kind of invested in each other. And I think that's just an area we can capitalize on more because there's interest in it, so.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. I would just say that, not to be argumentative with you, but I don't know if 90% would be the appropriate people stay here. I think there's a lot of transition. So again, we can, yeah, there's, you know, it's a mixture. I wouldn't say 90%, but any other questions? I have one, but I'll wait till it's my time. Any other questions for CTE? So my question is related to, again, the advent of us approaching students with their options. A lot of times we're doing this in middle school. We're sort of identifying career pathways for them. I still believe that that's still too early for a student to know what they want. So we give options. I mean, but I still would argue that there has to be some way to provide students with assessments so they can kind of understand what their passions are in middle school and in high school, to kind of broaden that horizon as they go forward. What is the current condition of that mentality or that philosophy right now in CTE?
We do try to promote our programs across the board. I know that the counselors, Ms. Garcia's not here, but they do regularly go into the classrooms. There are presentations not just on colleges, but on careers as connected to our CTE programs. We do try to, I know we talk about middle school being a little bit early, but we do try to plant the seeds. One of the programs that we have at all 5 middle schools is Principles of Human Services, and that's kind of a broad program. And so our teachers have been very willing, as we kind of approach that transition between 8th and 9th grade, they talk to kids about everything that's available in CTE. Now, that does just hit their students, but I will say our human services class average 30 8th graders over 6 or 7 periods, depending on how many middle school has. And we do offer a minimum of 3 CTE programs of study at middle schools, the intro classes. So again, we encourage our teachers, as they're talking to their kids about, is this something you want to do in high school? This is where you can go. And if this doesn't interest you, what else does interest you? So we are trying to attack it from the high school or from the middle school classes piece, as well as the high school counseling piece as they go in and do their services in classrooms. So that's kind of where
I might have a
we're at.
linkage for you. Can I jump in on one thing? Because
Sure.
it's somebody who's not here, which is we're increasingly trying to use School Links, which is a computer program that is full of career interest inventories. So it was used a lot at the high school, but, and oh, there's Mary, somebody write this down for her. We're trying to use School Links more at the middle school level now with all the career interest inventories. And potentially maybe the crosstalk that maybe could improve is, as we get more of those done, that being shared more with the CTE program, once we get more data fidelity and they're doing that more, of what are the interests of the kids, so that you're building your pipeline based on what more 6th graders say they want to do, and then sharing that with our, college-bound people so that they make sure they're offering the classes that meet what we think they want to do in college. So we may have a mechanism that's not being used to its fullest capacity to maybe meet part of that intent.
Aren't we still doing elective fairs as well at the campuses?
We do the elective fairs, and one of our initiatives for next year is, because we know not every middle school parent
Bless
can
you.
make to the high school elective fairs with their 8th graders, we're going to work at bringing our programs to the middle schools. I will tell you, we're very well represented at the elementary career days. The elementary people reach out to us a lot to have people come and present, our students go and present. But we have had discussions with our middle school teachers and principals about offering some career, mini career fairs, if you will, during their lunch periods. So for kids to be able to see without having to rely on parents, or, being able to go to 3 different career fairs at 3 different high schools, because we have multiple options, bringing those throughout the year to the middle schools so kids can see what's available.
If someone can remind me brought this forward before about students in high school taking the ASVAB, since it is a free test. We are providing that? I can't remember. And so that's happening in 9th grade, 10th grade? When does that occur? Juniors?
I believe it starts in 10th, but they have the
Okay.
opportunity as they request.
Okay. I remember we talked about it. Okay. Ms. Faulkner, you had a question?
I do. So I know at one point, kids in middle school had to declare their career pathway. It's a state law, isn't it?
Right, it's.
So we have no say-so whether or not, they have to determine, so.
They have to declare a personal
Right.
graduation plan, a PGP.
Right.
Going, 8th grade going into 9th grade, and then it's revisited when they get to high school, but they do have to pick a path in 8th grade.
Right, okay, so that being said, if we're, I think, again, the focus needs to be maybe on 5th, 6th a little bit, maybe a better concentration of 5th graders, 6th graders going in, so that they have, because as a parent, I'm gonna tell you, the law changed between two of my students. And when I went to the 8th grade going into 9th grade, and they said, yeah, you have to, I'm like, what? She can barely brush her teeth in the morning, and you want me to decide what career she's going to follow? Exactly. And so needless to say, here we are with a college degree, and now we're not doing what our, anyway. So maybe more career exploration. I'm glad she got a college degree, but it is not being used at this point. So, yeah, maybe.
I would be remiss, and I know that Ms. Garcia would probably text me if she's watching today.
She is watching.
Yeah, so I will say that we do what we call 5th to 6th grade transition fairs, where we take everybody down there, yes ma'am, and we do it from 8th grade to 9th grade. And in addition to the CTE fair and the career fair and all, and college night.
Okay, so as a disclaimer, I think when my daughter was one of the first when the law changed. And so it was kind of new for, it was like districts were going, what? Yeah, and so, yeah, good, thank you.
Well, thank you, and we'll go ahead and move on. We appreciate your time. Thank you. Dr. Fields?
And we appreciate all that you do, trust me.
Thank you, Ms. Eden. Health services.
Good morning again. I stand ready to answer any questions you guys may have about health services.
I'll start not with Ms. Ryan. Anyone else has questions as of right now? All right, Ms. Ryan, you got a question? And again, we have limited time.
Right, no, there are two things on here, well, really, all three of your key strategies are like, literally, like, on the fentanyl training, are we on schedule to finish that? What is it, 10 hours, 12? I don't
Yes.
remember. Whatever the kids are supposed to get.
Yes.
That's gonna be done by the end of this school year, because it went into effect this year, right?
That is correct, and I'm emphatically saying yes, because we just sent out notifications to counselors to provide us with the tracking form, like where are we, how are we doing?
Okay, I'll go find out from my kids.
Absolutely.
Immunizations, obviously a huge thing. I just, on my news feed, it's always outbreaks of measles, outbreaks of this. I'm seeing outbreaks in Florida and all over the type thing. So like, lots of lessons learned from this year, right? So getting those shot clinics, hitting social media, communications department about getting all these kids their immunizations, right? And making sure we have those repeatable systems and processes as part of registration to make sure we hit those benchmarks, right?
We can't leave this without me saying I'm incredibly proud of the work that nurses have done this school year.
Yes.
And Amy Stevens, if you guys notice, we are on our 11th shot clinic to date. We had 4 last year. So the whole idea behind that is getting these guys immunized before we even start the 24-25 school year.
Yep, so that we, everybody is rolling in, ready to start school,
Correct.
right? Like first day of school, we're not worried about any of that. Everybody's just going off to go learn English, math, science, social studies. And then the other thing, that third priority about clinic protocols, right? Like we're putting all these non-negotiables and standardization across our district, and how we have 31 nurses across 31 campuses dealing with medical issues and policies and procedures. 2012 to 2017 was a long time ago, so, that, I hope that's a great summer project.
Yes.
That when the nurses walk in, everyone has taken all the lessons learned of all the many things that have happened across our campuses, and having a level of standardization across our districts. It reduces liability, right, to the board, like if everybody's following the procedures that have been well vetted in place. And don't create anything, just go copy some other district. So.
We have 3 steps left on that project. Next step is to bring the nurses in and have them give us the final stamp of approval on the protocols. Then we will train campus principals in July so that they're aware of what the nurses do when X, Y, and Z happens. And then the last step will be to give the protocols to the campus nurses, and our district physician, Dr. Carpenter, will also be on hand when we provide that PD.
Okay, awesome. That's right in line with many of the things we've talked about with Dr. Gibson, and
Yes.
it applies to every department. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
No. Thank you.
Yes, my pleasure.
Next is communications.
My legs are short. Oh, thank you, friend. Good
Good morning. If y'all have any questions about our department?
Obviously, you guys have done phenomenal this year, and all the recognition has been phenomenal. Colleagues, are there any questions that we have? Anyone but Ms. Ryan? I'm just kidding. I always appreciate your input. Go ahead, Ms. Ryan.
Okay. Communications, yeah, obviously means more than one thing, right? It means the department and it means how we communicate at the district. But at some point, someone has to be like the owner of it, right? Like it's got to belong to someone. And we are doing all these non-negotiables, right? And making all these taxonomies of how we do things. And I know we've talked about this before, but and maybe the communications department is one of the people who helps consolidate things, but how we communicate data and what we communicate across the entire district is very inconsistent right now, right? Like it's just not, if you go to a campus's website, that you can find some data on some and you cannot. Like there's not a lot of consistency. If I go to a teacher website, some of them I can find their schedule, some of them haven't filled out the tab. If I go to a school's Facebook page, some of them are posting all of their newsletters every week and I know to go look for it there, and some of them are not. At some point, putting together kind of a list of common expectations that all of the campuses will communicate at a minimum this information and these types of platforms. And of course, everybody then, if you want to post 800 extra pictures of your kids on Copperfield's website, awesome, go have at it at your Facebook page. But if because I go to a lot of other districts' websites, so like I can find levels of consistency. And then some of ours I go and I don't. And I know, it's not always the priority. Like a couple years ago, like updating your teacher webpage, like that went out like district wide, right? Like nobody's going home on Friday until like your high school like course schedule and stuff is, but then other things become priorities, right? And then in terms of, some kind of communications policy of, what we expect from our staff and everybody, do I have to wait more than 72 hours for a response from my principal? What are our expectations and non-negotiables in terms of communication?
I'm having a hard time hearing. I'm sorry. I can't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I not close?
No.
No, she's saying the side conversations.
Yeah.
If I can respond and then ask, I'm sorry, Dr. Fields, go ahead.
I'd like to respond first, please.
Okay.
I think there is a level of consistency. We can always get better. I'm not trying to say that all of our websites at all the campuses are where they can be. I'm sure that there are going to be some teachers out there that need to put their course schedules and all the other stuff out. But in terms of our communications department and how we get the message out, I think we're one of the best in the city. I know that we've been told by organizations that we're one of the best in the city and the state. But to your point, yes, we can work with the campuses more on updating and be a little bit more consistent about our expectations of each campus across the district in terms of how they communicate. I know my daughter goes, I'm trying not to name, but yes, there are campuses that send you messages every Sunday before the week starts. In terms of our procedures for contacting people who call or have concerns throughout the week, we have that set in place as well. And I don't want to step all over everything that you're going to say, so Dr. Taggart, so go ahead.
No, just want to point out that, yes, we are constantly evaluating our processes and how we can streamline communication standards across the district and also on campuses. So there are certain areas of focus that we are working towards. We do have a social media and a webmaster at each campus, and so that is an additional duty that we're putting on someone. And so we have some parameters. Reevaluating those every year to see how much more we can put on there is something we're constantly working on. As far as websites go, we're going through just kind of a transition because the vendors changed. And so we just literally talked about this with Cabinet, and we'll be getting input from our campuses about what would be required for a teacher page, because we also have other learning platforms and other communication platforms that the campus campuses use for curriculum, that they communicate more with their parents using that. And so where's the bang for our buck, and where we're trying to, we don't want to overwhelm a teacher to have to do this, this, and this on a website, where the bulk of their communication is being done through a learning platform where they're consistently communicating with parents. So what's the bare minimum? So I just want to point out that all of those things that you point out, we are constantly looking at for evaluation. And I know that Ms. Greathouse could probably speak to more if there's more clarification needed.
Not much more to that, but we also do provide training at the beginning of the year for our new teachers, as well as we provide quarterly training for our webmasters and our social media managers for the campuses from our department. Yep. No, it's just one of those things can always be done better, right? Like it's going to continuously improve every single day of every single year.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Ms. Eaton?
I just want to say, shout out to Pashal Elementary Dojo. I love it. I love it. And the teachers there that have the time, Lord knows, on top of everything else that you guys are required to do, that have the time to do input, I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you as well. Ms. Stanford, you have a question?
I have had some comments about our website, our Judson District website, and that things are sometimes not easy to find. It's almost like kind of Alice in Wonderland, going down a lot of the rabbit holes. But I've also had recently a comment about budget information, that it be more robust, a little bit more information, and also be easier to access. At one time, we did have it, I was told. At one time, we did have budget information more easily accessible and fuller, and so I'm just passing that on.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We do have the budget information under the business and finance page, and we do have all posted requirements in there. I just checked recently, but if there's something that you are particularly looking for, I'll be more than glad to provide through Friday notes.
Mr. Brooks?
Just wanted to say that, being fresh off the campus as a principal, one of the policies that we had is that as far as contacting parents and replying to parents when they're contacting the school, we had a 24-hour response policy. And so if parents identified areas where that wasn't happening, then we addressed the teacher, to make sure that they are compliant to that policy of responding to parents within the 24-hour time period.
And that's helpful if something like that is a district-wide thing, because we get called by people all the time, right? Like, I emailed my teacher 48 hours ago, I didn't hear back from him. Well, if everybody's 24 hours, like that's whatever the standard or whatever you've established for your staff, then it's much easier for us to say, okay, well, the teacher should have replied within 24 hours. Can you please reach out to the assistant principal, right? Like if you haven't heard back in the 48, then your next step is this. But if the standard is 72 and they haven't heard in 48, well, we don't want to people start blowing anything up. So I think if we know what Dr. Fields has expected, then it's easier for us to reply to people and tell them what the expectation is, and then send them the right direction or tell them to be patient.
And then the other
I'm
thing.
going to yield back. We're off the agenda. This is communications with Lexi Grayhouse, not communications within campuses. So we can bring that to the agenda if we need to. Is this related to Ms. Grayhouse's comments? Is it related? Go ahead, Ms.
The communications I receive is great, and my parents and my, yes, fantastic, thank you.
Thank you.
Ain't no we in that, okay? I'm talking about me.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Eaton. And thank you, Ms. Greathouse.
Thank you.
Next is fine arts.
And Mr. Witt, you won the prize for best dressed today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I stand here and ready for any questions that y'all may have regarding my program.
We appreciate that. Any initial questions? I will start first. Obviously, there's a lot of work you guys do. You're involved in from elementary through high school. And I think that there's been discussion from the cabinet for additional support and getting you resources. So I'm excited about that future. Obviously, we've asked athletics in the past how they measure success of their programming. So in your opinion, I guess engagement of students in programs that you involve, do you feel that's beneficial? Do you think it's been helpful?
Yes, sir. I mean, the way our curriculum is basically a performance-based curriculum. So basically, we're in front of the public for evaluation almost on a weekly, if not a monthly basis, in several different programs. A high school group dancing, they're evaluated every Friday night when you watch them during halftime. And so, but for music, our star test, let's say, is their concert and sight reading evaluation. And I'm very proud to say that many of our schools have received sweepstakes. Wagner High School had a phenomenal, the choir program. They took 6 groups where all 6 groups came away with trophy, if not a sweepstakes award. You know, all the high school bands and the orchestras did very well.